Hey everyone, and welcome to the IELTS Focus. Today, we're going to break down a really cool reading passage called Dirty River, Clean Water. We'll dig into the key vocabulary and ideas to help you really boost your skills for the IELTS test.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through this article in 5 key steps. This is a great way to see how an author builds their argument, from a surprising start all the way to a really thought-provoking ending. First up, the main idea. And right from the get-go, the author pulls a classic move you'll see all the time in IELTS passages. They hit you with a hook, something that totally flips what you think you know on its head.
I just love this comparison. You see what they did there? They're saying, hey, just like forests actually need fires sometimes, rivers need floods. It's such a clever analogy to introduce a pretty complicated idea, and it immediately sets the stage for the whole article.
So, what's the big idea here? It's this total 180 in how we think about nature. We've gone from trying to control everything to realizing that some things we call disasters, like floods, might actually be, well, essential for a healthy river.
Okay, so if floods are a good thing, what did the river actually look like back in the day? The author kind of takes us on a trip back in time to see the Colorado River in its natural state, before we started building things. Wow, look at this. This table just lays it all out, doesn't it? The difference is huge. And you got to pay attention to this word sediment. That's all the sand and mud and stuff the river carries. The passage says before the dam, the river was infused with it, just full of it, naturally muddy. But now, it lacks sediment. And that one little change, well, it changes everything.
And that brings us to a fantastic vocabulary word, one you should definitely have in your back pocket for the IELTS test, especially for any geography-type questions.
So, a tributary. Think of it like a small branch on a tree that joins up with the main trunk. It's a little stream or river that flows into a much bigger one. And the whole point the author is making here is that these little tributaries just aren't big enough to dump enough sediment back into the Colorado River.
So, okay, the river changed. Big deal, right? Well, what did that actually do? Let's dig into the consequences and see what happened to the poor animals living there when their whole world got turned upside down.
So the article zeroes in on this one fish, the humpback chub, to make its point. And check out this fantastic phrase, it thrived in the rust-red waters. To thrive is such a great word. It means to grow, to be successful, to flourish. It tells you this fish was perfectly at home in that old muddy river.
And this is where it gets interesting, because the article asks, so why did the chub population crash? It wasn't as simple as just adding a new fish, the trout, because they lived together just fine before the dam. This is a classic example of critical thinking. You have to dig deeper to find the real root of the problem. Okay, now this breaks it all down for us. It's like a line of dominoes falling. The dam stops the mud. The water gets clear. The little chub have nowhere to hide, and bam, the trout can see them and hunt them easily. The real villain here wasn't the trout, it was the clear water. Seeing this kind of cause and effect chain is a huge skill for acing the IELTS reading section.
And yeah, it wasn't just the chub. The problem was way bigger. The whole ecosystem got completely out of whack. The original native species started disappearing, and these new alien species, as the article calls them, moved in. They were the ones who could handle the new clear water conditions.
All right, so we've got a really clear problem, right? No mud means no hiding spots for the fish. So what's the logical solution? Well, you'd think we could just make our own flood, right? Create one ourselves.
But, as you can probably guess, it's not that easy. It's been a whole process of trial and error. The first time they tried, the flood was too long and just washed all the new mud away. The second time, they didn't have enough sand to begin with. This is a perfect situation to use a phrase like mixed results, a super useful one for IELTS. They're feeling a bit more hopeful this time, but yeah, history shows this is a really tough nut to crack.
And this is where we get to the last paragraph, and you can almost feel the author's tone change a little. They're not so optimistic anymore. There's a little bit of doubt creeping in. And let me tell you, being able to spot these shifts in an author's attitude, that is a top-tier reading skill. So why the doubt? Well, first off, it's just basic math. This new man-made flood is flowing at less than 1,200 cubic meters per second. But remember that number from the beginning? A real, natural spring flood used to average around 1,500. So the fix is actually weaker than what the river used to do all by itself. And listen to the language the author uses here. It's so descriptive. They call the old floods glorious inundations that made a muddy mess of silt and muck. You see that contrast?
It makes you think that what's actually good and healthy for the river might look kind of gross and messy to us humans, especially people who want to go rafting.
And that's the big final question the article leaves you chewing on. Is it possible that what's good for the ecosystem is the exact opposite of what's good for humans? Are we, willing to accept a river that looks dirty to us so it can be healthy for the creatures that call it home? It's a really powerful idea to end on, this clash between what we want things to look like and what nature actually needs.